We're live now, Rashid. Broadcast video is live. We're on air. So I'd just
Oh,
like I'd just like to make a great welcome to everyone who's tuned in on the evening to give up some of your precious time. Rashid and I really appreciate that. And to join us in our second live chat using Google Hangouts. I'm Tum Kazunga, one of the co-founders of Evolved Heart, and of course, I'm here with Rashid. Hey, Rashid.
hello everyone. How are you doing? Hoping you're all very, very well. Hoping you're very well indeed.
Excellent. And today I think we got some really good stuff in store for us because we ran a little poll on our Facebook fan page, which is, slowly growing, and we had some feedback on the vote, and it was decided that we're going to cover the topic of how to simplify your life. And I think, Rashid, you've planned like quite, some really cool things out, haven't you? So we're looking at how to simplify your mind. Excuse me, just switch that off. How to simplify your mind, simplify your life, and simplify your career. Is that correct?
Completely. I'm really glad that this is the topic that has been chosen because, the thing is, Tom, today that we have really busy lives, we have busy minds, we have busy careers, and in the West particular, but it's becoming quite universal. There is just so much stuff, there is so much content. People have just got so much going on in their lives. And I have a saying that, sometimes too much content leads to discontent. So this issue about how you simplify your life is a real issue for people, from email overload to feeling stressed out in their job, to people feeling that they don't have enough time, to the feeling that they don't have the life balance that they want. These are all linked issues here in terms of simplifying your life. So I'm really, really glad that this is the topic that people have chosen today, because it really is one that I think chimes with pretty much, I don't know anybody who knows somebody who isn't affected by this issue.
No, that's true. And I guess, we've spoken a lot about, topics around this area, and, I've always had a lot of questions for you because my life is just hectic. um, but so I'm always looking for any tips I can get. But I mean, on a serious note, it really is one of the sort of foundational topics, isn't it? If you're serious about, focusing your life and really narrowing down on what it is you want to do and where you want to go, you can't do that if there's clutter, can you?
You can't. You can't. You really can't. And that's why, I mean, today one of the things I'm going to be doing to them is taking people through, if you like, 3 steps, 3 areas. There's your mind, simplifying your mind, simplifying your life, and simplifying your work. And the reason why I'm starting off with this thing about simplifying your mind is that you might get 2 different people in the same job, and one can cope with the workload. They've got exactly the same amount of workload, and one can't. So mindset clearly has a lot to do with it, and your relationship to the content of what's going on in your life, and so on. Your relationship to yourself, your thoughts, and so on is really important. And that's why I'm going to be starting off with this thing about, simplifying your, looking at your relationship to your mind. And then then I'm going to be zooming in a little bit to talk about what's going on in your life, what's the content you've got in your life, and how you can simplify that and manage that a little bit better. And then zooming in very specifically into an area that lots of people often do know that they're very busy, and they may want to simplify it or manage it more effectively, which is your work.
Excellent. So those are 3, I think everyone would agree, pretty key topics. So we're looking at simplify your mind, your life, and your career, which is great. So why don't we kick off? Take it over, Rashid. So we're looking, I guess, at the mind now.
Yeah, let's look at the mind. And if you're watching, if you're listening, and you're willing to send in questions, of course, I know that we've got some questions already, but you can still do that to admin@evolvedheart.com. So I'm really keen to make this, as always, kind of interactive, and Tom and I are going to be debating this a little bit, but we'll be taking your questions, and I know we've got some questions in. But yeah, let's start off with this thing about your mind. Simplify. What's your relationship to your mind? And the mind is really important because everything plays out in your mind. We've called Evolved Heart for a reason. That very often people are so stuck in their mind that there's no connection with their heart, there's no life balance, their heart's not in it, they're feeling overwhelmed, their mind's all over the place. And this is one of the things that I find time and time again, that people have just got so much kind of stuff going on. So really to start off in terms of your mind is that, as I kind of touched on before, you might have 2 people who are doing exactly the same stuff, and one person might feel overwhelmed and cool with it, And somebody might, somebody might be fine and somebody else might be overwhelmed. So this goes to show that your mindset has got a lot to do with it. So one of the first things I'm really going to get everybody who's on this to really think about is what's really important to you. What is most important to you? I want you to just bring to your mind that is just the most important to you. So what's most important? And if you've got a pen and a piece of paper, what's most dear to you? What's really important? In other words, and sometimes we do this, and I do this exercise when I'm coaching people, when all's said and done, imagine that you're there, you're about to breathe your last breath, and somebody was asking you, because you're a wise old person, what's really important in life? What was really most important in life? Chances are that you're going to probably say a handful of things that are really important. When I ask people this question, they often say, you know what, it's friends, it's about family, it's about how it is you treat people, it's about doing something that you really love, and so on. So, but bring to your mind what's important to you. The thing is here that very often what happens to them is that people get so caught up in everything else. So in order really to get to a point where you can simplify your life, you've got to bring to your attention that which is really, really, really important. And really that people who are at peace with their mind and are quite peace with what's going on in their life, they know and they focus on what's important. Right. And therefore they don't focus on what's not important. And until you really know what's really important, you're going to struggle because you're going to be overwhelmed. It's a bit like going shopping without a shopping list sometimes. On the one hand, it's great because you're open to all sorts of things, but on the other hand, you could be absolutely overwhelmed. So you need to kind of tell them, you need to bring to your attention that which is really, really dear. And so that one of the things that you'll find, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, is that you get many people who are kind of aware that they want to simplify their life or get organized, and they write these huge to-do lists with good intention. But the to-do lists very often have got very little to do with what's really, really important in life. Yeah. So this is really, really important. So I'm going to do a little bit of an exercise now. I'm going to invite, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I'm going to invite you to shut your eyes, close your eyes for a minute. Just close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, especially if you're really kind of stressed out. Take a couple of deep breaths in. So breathe in, hold it, and breathe it all the way out. Breathe it all out. Breathe in again nice and deeply from your stomach. You might want to put your hand on your stomach. Nice and deep. Hold it for a while, and then exhale, let it all out. Again, breathe in. Hold it, and then let it all out. And as I'm speaking, you might want to continue doing this. This isn't just for fun. The word inspiration means breath. There's no surprise that in many, many traditions, people get people to meditate and do breathing exercises, because what it does is it regulates the mind and the body. You need the oxygen into your body. And what it will also do is you're breathing in, it will just for a while take your attention away from your mind into your body. So if you're somebody who is really, really stressed out, these kind of exercises will really, really help you. And it's one of the reasons, when people are really kind of stressed, they say, take a few deep breaths, take a few deep breaths. You ever heard that? It happens all the time, doesn't it? Or people are nervous, they've got to give a talk. Take a few deep breaths in. Because what we're doing here is we're turning the attention away for a minute from the mind, just the whole body system. And now I want you to, again, ask yourself that question. As you're breathing in and breathing out, what's really important in life? And in fact, just before you answer that question, bring your attention now to your mind, to the head area. Can you notice how the head is just a little bit lighter? It's not so much worried about, if the front door is open, if you're able to hear what Tom and Rashid's saying, or that Rashid's video camera isn't quite as clear as Tom's, you're probably far more, just a little bit more relaxed, you're just a little bit more at peace. This is our starting point, peace of mind. So one of the things that I'm going to really be encouraging anybody who's listening to this is that in order for you to simplify your life, in order for you to be effective in anything that you're wanting to do, you're really going to need to foster a really good, healthy relationship with your mind. And for that, you're going to need your mind to be clear. What happens a lot of the time, Tom, is that people's minds are on overdrive. It's like an engine that's on all the time. Do you know what I mean? It's like an engine that's just on all the time, and sometimes it just needs time out. So be it that you need to go out, be it that you go out for a walk, be it is that you have a lie down and have a nap, be it is that you do some meditation or whatever, washing up and all these things. For some people, these will take attention away from the mind. Find what works for you that takes you away from the mind. And it's no surprise that lots of people have all sorts of hobbies too, not just for fun and relaxation, but because it's actually linked to that, it will take the attention away from the mind. The thing that's really interesting about this thing about the mind is that we often think, well, hang on a minute, now I need to be in a real mind space in order to get the things that I need to get done. But actually, funny enough, if you're a creative, I used to be a singer and performer, if you speak to lots of athletes and so on, whilst they need to have a particular kind of focus, they also need to have a very clear mind, relaxed, that they're actually performing at their height. They often go into a kind of, if you like, the zone, what lots of people call. This is a space where you're not really consciously thinking that much. All the work that you've done, all the preparation that you've done, you're just in the space of flow. So that's the first thing, this thing about mind. And so I'm just going to throw out a few tips here. It might be, ask yourself, am I getting enough sleep? If you're not getting enough sleep, your mind's just not going to be rested. And I know that for some people who are listening to this, like your good self, sometimes you might be a parent, or there might be particular circumstances whereby you may need to, your circumstances may well be the case that you're going to have to be very careful and canny about how you get your rest, how you get your sleep, and really taking care of yourself. So when I move on in a while to begin to talk about things like your life, this is where some of the strategies will come into play, because it might well be that you're needing to begin to talk to other people and to get some support that you might well need in order that you're able to get your mind into the space that you need to. But essentially, what you're going to need to be doing is making sure you get that sleep. If you're feeling really overwhelmed, overexhausted, get out and about, get back into nature. We are part of nature. We often disconnect ourselves from nature. And it's no surprise that one of the first things that I do in my Become Who You Are video, which will soon be on the shop, which we're soon about to launch on Evolve Tart, that will be available there, is interestingly, the very first section is all about this space, simplicity, and how to, to get that kind of space, because it's absolutely essential.
Excellent. I mean, one of the things that struck me with what you just said there is about, a couple of things really. One, that peace of mind that you talk about, though, it's harder than it sounds, isn't it? It's like that, like learning meditation. It's something that you literally have to learn as well, eh? How to empty your mind and how to focus on really what's important. And that comes back to what you said about the to-do list. And I remember once I went to this like management training course back in the day when I was employed, and was taught how to do a to-do list. And literally, I think you'd end up having like 30 things, because you would have to grade them by like what's important. So like A to B, or whatever. And then even within the A's, you might have 4 or 5 items that were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like your idea of just having 3 or very few items, That...
Completely. What you're saying here is real gold dust. I think there's a few things here in what you're saying, Tom, is that picking up from that last point first, I think that sometimes even with good intentions, when people go on some of these courses that help people structure what's really important, I think that sometimes that just the sheer number of things that we put in there is just too much. So one of the things that I do very often when I'm coaching people, and I do it quite deliberately, is often if they're going to do things like to-do lists, is I get them just to have 3. Because there's a strategic list. It's nice because we're now moving into the life and the work bit. They will all overlap in this conversation. But I do that very, very deliberately. Because if you put the 3 things that are really most important, it's really going to be very easy to tell at the end of the day if you've done what's really important, or have you been sidetracked with something else. So that's one thing. It's going to be a good test of your discipline and your commitment to doing what you're doing. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, obviously, it's far more productive, and you're more likely to do the things that are really, really, really important. And guess what? The things that aren't as important, you're probably going to do, the other things that are incidental that you need to do to clear the way, like do the ironing, do the washing up, or call Fred to renew that delivery of paper. You're probably going to do it as well. But this will just make sure that you're on track. This is probably somebody trying to take part in the live chat, but they're too. but they're too late. I'm very tempted to tell them that we're on a live recording at the moment, but
You're on air.
I'll let that pass.
Yeah.
They're live on air. They're live on air.
So are you saying then that people have like, once you have a clear mind, naturally you'll know what's important on your to-do list? Is that what you're saying?
That's very true, and I think there's another dimension to this. When you were talking about before, some people might have tried done meditation or found things like that difficult, or that thing about emptying your mind or whatever. I think there are a few myths around this. What really we are really talking here about actually peace of mind, what we're talking about in this sequence here. And in order to arrive at peace of mind, you've got to be at peace with the contents of your mind. So that means you've just got to kind of accept, okay, there are all these things going on, and this is a really nice strategy in terms of all this stuff. Okay, I've got all these things that I'm mindful about that seem to be important to me or that I'm concerned about. Accept that. Okay, and even in that moment, your mind will be a little bit more at ease with this kind of stuff. Because you've got to work with your mind rather than try and fight in your mind, or I shouldn't have these thoughts, or I shouldn't have those thoughts. Thoughts will bubble up. And so, for example, if anyone's trying meditation or drawn to that or is thinking about meditation after this, and there is a free meditation also on the Evolved Heart website in the top videos thing, it is just about, meditation is, again, just as we were doing before, it is just about you being still, and it is just bringing your attention, centering you. It's taking attention away a little bit from the mind to the heart, and you're just then beginning to just become aware of the thoughts, and you're just letting them be. You're not trying to delete them. You just let them be and just float their own particular way. And I think that the analogy that I use here often is I often talk about the weather. You get some people are accepting of the weather and so on, and some people are always constantly fighting it. But the different weather's going to emerge. You're going to get sun, rain, and all the rest of it. So really, if you're really interested in this stuff, it is really about getting to a point of acceptance. This is me. There's this kind of stuff going on, but I realize that my mind is very busy. What can I do to give my mind a little bit of a break? Okay, for me, it's doing the washing up. Okay, for me, it's going out for a walk. For me, it's a little bit of meditation, whatever it is, and not being overly that interested. And then going back to the first
running
exercise,
or whatever it is, exercise, running, whatever it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the last thing to say about that is that then, when we just then ask what's really most important, and I deliberately said that thing, imagine if you're on your deathbed. Sometimes I do that when I'm coaching people, or I was with somebody earlier on, I said, imagine, you're at this magical gala ceremony toward the end of your life. What's really important? What's most important? And usually most people, a handful of things bubble up. What's good about that is that then there may well be some, and we'll get onto this soon, there may well be some really tough decisions that you're going to need to make in your life and in your work about what you do and what you don't do, and what habits you do and you don't have, based on what has come up. If what's come up is doing a job you love, if what's come up is your friends and your family, if what's come up is having time to enjoy playing the piano or whatever it might well be, then that's what's come up for you. Then our job is, how do we honor those things? And how do we put those things in place first? So that brings us nicely onto the bit about, now let's zoom in to, how is it that you can simplify your life? Right.
I mean, just one thing, we had some questions that had come in before and stuff that we thought would be useful to share. But I think there was one question that, before we go into your life, about technology, because I'm a big gadget fan and I love my tech, etc. But there's all these apps you can download, which is about simplifying your life and sorting out lists and what have you, and all sorts of things. I mean, what role do you say, is there a role for technology in all of this, or should you just get rid of stuff? Can we use it? I mean, how does that work?
It's a beautiful question. I think that you've got to really find out what it is that really works for you. We're surrounded by all sorts of labor-saving devices and things to make our lives easier. The funny thing is that very often, that it's important that we use technology rather than we're becoming a slave to technology. So you really do need to become mindful about what it is that works for you. If you're feeling really exhausted, if you're feeling tired and so on, then that is a sign for you that maybe you're spending too much time online or in front of the computer or even with that app aimed at simplifying your life. It's one of the reasons why I very much deliberately didn't want to put together a PowerPoint for this for this session. I don't want people to go away and feel as though they have to do something more. We tend to have a relationship to these things. I've got to do something in order to simplify my life. You can't pour more water into a full cup, I often say. You can't pour more water into a full cup. So what we're going to be looking at the life section is how can I claw back some time? Sure, if you've got, practically answering that question, if you've got setting an alarm or you've got an app that's telling you that now it's time for you to spend time to go and play with the kids or to go to the gym or whatever, fine, as long as you do it. But if it's something that's just taking up more of your time and it's not really helping you, or it's just becoming a thing of itself that is just time zapping and energy zapping, then you need to be quite tough with yourself. And that might mean going your own way, because there might well be some peer pressure things here that people are expecting you to be on Twitter, YouTube, whatever it might well be, Facebook, however many hours of a day. So you're going to need to really listen to yourself and find out what works. But I think there are probably some really good apps out there that might help you get organized and so on. But I think my secret thing is know what really is important to you and find out what it is that works for you. You know, if it's if it's setting an old egg timer to keep you mindful, then do that. If it's a new piece of technology, then use that.
Cool. Well, maybe that's something we can go back to at another time. Maybe I can write a blog post with my favorite tech gadgets. Yeah. But let's move on, because I'm mindful as well, obviously, that you got quite a bit you wanna go through. So we're looking at the mind and simplifying that, and as you pointed out, that converges and ties in with your life and everything that you're sort of hoping to achieve. I mean, what advice do you give to people around people's life and all that entails, really?
This is really important. One of the first things I do as a coach, many people are quite surprised when I'm working with people one-to-one. And this includes when I'm working, and very often particularly when I'm working with business people or high achievers or chief executives and so on. One of the first things I do, even though they might be paying me to coach them on their business objectives or things that they're trying to do in that work and so on, is to put in the me time things. The me time, the family time, the downtime, the rest time. Because if you don't put those things in first, they are not going to happen. The chances are. You can't leave things like your life balance to chance. You can't leave it to the last thing in the day. In order to, you've got to build that into your day. So I think the thing is that once you brought your awareness what's really important to you, then one of the things that I'd really encourage you to do as a tip is to put those things, if you have a diary or whatever it is that you use, or technology, whatever it is you use, put those things into the diary. And so, for example, I'm busy working with people all the time. I've got to be very good at time management, and I've got to practice what I preach. The first things that I did today was I had a little bit of a clear out the space in the studio. It was quite good because prompted by this session, I thought, let me just again do that, and then and I always have in my diary the clear time, which is the me time. So that is a really good practical time where you would actually put in the time for you or the things that really wanting to do, be it the gym or whatever. And it's a really lovely, just a practical thing that you can do. You know what? Sometimes the nature of life and events will be the case that you have to eat into that time. That's just how it is. But the mere fact that you brought to your attention that that's what you're going to do is going to help you hugely. And you're reprogramming your mind that is also important. And the beautiful thing is that people think, whoa, I can't do that. This actually does have a knock-on effect in terms of everything, else. So I think that's a very, very practical thing that you can do. And just, there's a big connection between headspace and physical space. Have clear outs at work, in the office, throw things out. Again, this is something that we go on into the Become Who You Are video and so on for those people who are really interested in that. So, clearing things out, create a space. You can't pour water into a full cup. That's going to clear a little bit of a space, and then you might be emotionally attached to all sorts of things that you are unaware of. So clear out that particular space, but put in the you time, the down time, the fun time, and the thing time. And these things are also going to have a knock-on effect, where if you're putting in the time, let's say you, like me, you love tennis and so on, you're just going to feel more energized. You can have things like exercise, energy, they give you more energy. So if you're feeling tired and so on, there's a link between all of these things. Are you eating properly? Are you drinking properly? And so on. All of these things that we kind of know about, they're all absolutely linked, but only when you ask yourself that question, what's really important to me, we then get to that clarity and we can begin to simplify our life. But I would say that would be, and that's really simple advice. Put in that time. Put in that time first. That would be my tip. Put in that time, clear things out. That's essentially it. Put in that time. Put in the time for you and the family. Put in the time when you're going to take the kids away. Put in the time when you go to the gym. Call that person now. If you're watching this and you're really struggling with these issues, do it right now. Do it right now, or make a note that right at the end of this call, I am going to ring, my uncle and catch up, or my aunt, or the kids, or the nephews and nieces, and do it right now. Do whatever it is. Do it right now. Make that time right now. Put it in your diary right now, because you can't afford to fall back into the same old habits.
Right. That sounds actually like just real solid practical advice,
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add to that is to gently be mindful about what is that you're actually spending your time on. If you brought to your attention what's really important, what is that you're actually spending your time on? You might even want to gently, over a week, keep a diary. Are you spending the time on the things that you've said are important? Or are you spending the time on the TV, the internet, the this, the that, the that, the that? You're not a bad person for doing that. It's just bringing it to your attention. And it might be that you just bring to your attention, these are the things that are really important to me, and have that somewhere visible if need be. This is what's really important to me. You're telling your mind this is important. So you're telling your mind that it's worth me spending the time on. Something interesting has happened, Tom, is that I often point out that the word work-life balance we put the wrong way round. We call it work-life balance. It's life-work balance.
Yeah.
It should be life-work balance. And that proves the problem that we're in. And we're going into the work section in just a minute now. And which is an area where, and if you think part of these problems is that the work issues spill into this life category, which is why I've deliberately started off with your mind, then moved on to your life,
right,
and then we're going to be moving to your work. And
so the whole thing about one question that came through, which ties into this, is I like this question actually. So someone went on a retreat like a few years ago.
Then moved on to your life. Right. And then we're going to be moving to your work.
Hi Kojo, thanks for joining us. And so the whole thing about
joining the
Okay, so I was just going to say, Rashid, there was a question. So someone said they went on a retreat or a holiday a couple of years ago, and as usual, they felt great, really relaxed while they were doing it. But they only felt like that. They only felt like that on holiday. I mean, how do they carry that into their everyday life?
Yeah, so you're saying that they felt really relaxed on holiday, and then suddenly, once they got back from holiday, that they were really exhausted. How do you carry it into your life? Hello.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Hi. We got young fans.
Well, I think that one of the things is
while we're doing it.
It's not really flexible. It's interesting, Tom. It's a little bit like what Kojo was doing there. If he knows that something's important to him, like the family and so on, it's nice that his son was there. So I think what the first thing you do is to bring these things into your consciousness, that they are important to you. You've really got to allow the fact that having time for myself, having time to relax, having time to recharge, these things are really, really important to me. And first of all, I think that they are important. We often see holidays almost become tasks too. We've got to realize that the downtime, the rest time, and so on has a reason. There's a reason why as human beings, we are, however it is that we're fashioned, is that sleep calls us every day. Food calls us every day. Nourishment calls us every day. That's not by chance. So we're talking about myself, really flowing with life and beginning to recognize the very, very patterns of life. That's really, really, really important here. And so that rest, sleep, time out, the holidays are important. And I think that once you begin to make a note of that, then that's really going to help. Practically speaking, with something like holidays, and one thing that many people can do is that, particularly if you're in a busy working job, is that one thing that I see some people employ do very effectively is that once they book one holiday, they'll book the next. The very, very pattern. Begin to make a note of that.
Okay. I think we seem to be having a few tech issues as well.
Yeah.
As everyone,
That's really good.
you know, people, we can also watch the video
Please speak in
on the blog. So we shouldn't do both. Either way, doing it on Google Plus or on the blog. I think that's one of the things. But if that's cool, let's carry on then. So
what we might have to do, Tim, tech wise.
So we
yes, so you just muted Kojo. Hey, friends, we've just had to mute Kojo for a minute because I think we're having a few technical problems. That's all part of the fun of the play. So yeah. So where are we now? We're about to move on to. So we've talked a little bit about your mind. We've talked about life. And are you ready for us to go into the golden nugget?
Yes, I am. But I think before we do, I think this is probably a good chance for us to announce the competition winners, don't you think?
Yeah, so if you don't know that for those of people who don't know, Tim, let's tell them that we've been running about over the last month a competition, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Are you ready for us to go?
I am, yep. To announce. We have. I think there's a weird time lag. Can you hear that?
Yeah, there is. I'm wondering if we might need to do you think we might need to disconnect somebody from the chat and then get them just on via the text? Would you reckon?
Yeah, let me just see how that goes. Let me get the list of people out first, huh?
Yeah.
Because we have our 10 winners.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, should I just announce them now?
Yeah, announce it. So for those of you who don't know, just before Tom, the text, we've been running for people to win some coaching with me. The top prize is 5 hours worth of coaching with me. And we've also got a handful of other prizes. I think 10 runners-up prizes of people who can win my Become Who You Are video, which I've been talking about, the Coach Yourself video, which is an hour, I think 45 minutes.
About 10 winners. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think the first prize was 5 hours of coaching with Rashid over the phone or Skype, however you do that, which, you know, I mean, considering what people pay you over £100 an hour, so that's a great value prize. Just
for people to win.
Yeah. And then we had a bunch of runner-up prizes. So we had winners. We're going to give away 10. We're basically going to give away 10 free copies of. Sorry, guys, just sorting out the tech stuff. We're giving away 10 free copies of Become Who You Are as well, which is the DVD that Rashid talked about. Currently, we're just about to sell that on the site. So again, some good value prizes and a few other bits and pieces. I think the meditation as well, or a talk about the Become Who You Are concept. We'll throw that in as well. Wasn't that what we agreed, Rashid?
That's right. That's right. So you're going to get the Become Who You Are Coach Yourself video, which is a downloadable video, which is great, which you can just enjoy and so on. You're going to be able to coach yourself. And I've got a Become Who You Are semi-meditative talk. So all the stuff I was talking about, simplifying your mind and so on, the Become Who You Are talk is a beautiful tool to help you, support you in that. So they go beautifully together and ironically tie in really, really well with this particular kind of theme. So the winner's going to get all three, and I think the 10 runners-up are going to get the DVD, and they're going to get the downloadable Become Who You Are talk as well. In other words, the video and the downloadable talks, which is fantastic prizes to help you, support you in that. So they go beautifully together and ironically tie in really, really.
Yeah, no. So the winner then
with this particular talk.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, we have the again, it's yep. So the winner that we have then basically for the first prize, which is 5 hours of coaching, is Andy Baker. Do you know him, Rashid?
Congratulations, Andy. Well, I think Andy's one of the people who I met at at a talk who I think that is a student. So well done, Andy. Just goes to show you've got to be in it to win it.
Absolutely. So that's 5 hours of coaching.
If it's the same Andy Baker, I guess there's quite a few on the planet. It might be a completely different Andy Baker.
It will be, but we'll be sending out an email to everyone who's won as well, so not just announcing it here. And then the runner-up prizes, I'll just read them out. It's Kate Griffiths, Rebecca Ellum, Maria Soriano, John Ford, Pippa Moy, Yasmin Dipchan, Rebecca Devlin, Raj Ram, and there's one more which I can't quite see, but we'll get that up there. So, you know, we have essentially the 10 winners, and we'll be sending out an email to announce that formally to them and telling them how to claim their prize.
Wow, congratulations everybody, exciting stuff. And the winner, remember the winner's name again? Andy
Baker, yeah.
So you'll be hearing from us. We'll email you, and we'll be sending you. So you'll be getting the goodies and the coaching. So really good stuff, and it really ties in with this. You know, it ties in with all of this kind of stuff, Tom, because I think that it's quite interesting. One of the reasons why I guess fields like mine have developed over the years is that because people are so busy, that often they, you know, one of the things that I find that comes up all the time when I'm coaching people is they say the most important things they're wanting, you know, they're wanting clarity, they're wanting kind of simplicity, they're wanting to be able to be focused, they're wanting motivation, and they're wanting to be kind of strategic. And all of these things really link to this whole thing about simplifying your life, knowing what's really important, and then focusing on it. So well done, everybody, and good stuff. And there'll be future competitions and all sorts of stuff here at Evolved Heart. And for those people who are curious about any of those products, they're all going to be in the shop soon over the coming months or so. So that's fantastic stuff.
Excellent. Right. So shall we move on to the last section then, which is how to simplify your career.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, right? Whether self-employed, working for someone else, doesn't matter.
Hugely. And I think that one of the things is that, you know, there's so much, our lives, our working lives, I guess, have become more complex over a period of time, and often they're probably more busy than they were a generation ago. I was giving a talk the other day, earlier on this week, at a university, and I was telling the students there that when I started work, hey, I know I'm much younger than I look, I had a typewriter on my desk. There was actually a typewriter on my desk. I had a typewriter, there was one computer, there was no email, there wasn't really email. Yeah, my goodness, there wasn't really email. And
how long ago was that?
Let's not go there. It wasn't that long. Actually, I don't think it was that long ago. It was, it was a while ago.
Yeah, no, I agree, because it was the same for me, but let's go on.
Yeah, let's leave that one there. But it just goes to show that one of the things that makes our lives and our working lives more busy is technology. And for those people who were watching earlier, what technology has brought wonderful things to us. It's meant that we can do more, we can engage more, we can do far more business, far more work, it can be far more productive, it can help and it can enhance our work. But it also is something that we become overly, perhaps overly, reliant on, and it can also go wrong. Just as with earlier on this call, you know, you can get fantastic technology, but there can be technological challenges and problems and so on. So I think that one of the things that's really happened that's important for us to really observe is that actually one of the reasons why this thing about simplifying your life is so poignant is that many people during the course of their lives will have experienced the fact that their working lives have become effectively busier and busier and busier. So there will be, you know, they might have started off first of all having phone calls to make and letters to write and so on. Now you might have all of those things, and you've got emails and you've got this and you've got social media and all these additional things to do. So I think one of the first things for us to acknowledge is that we do have busier lives than we probably had a generation ago. And so I think that many people who are probably listening to this who may well be particularly affected by this may well be people from late 20s through going age-wise upwards. That's not to say that these issues don't also affect younger people, but many of those people are particularly seeing it because it can be very, very pronounced in their lives and their careers. So I think, again, one of the things that's really, really important in your work is know what is really, really important. What is really important? What are you there to do? What is it you're strategically there employed to do? Most organizations should have strategic plans. Most teams should have strategic plans of what they're wanting to do. Most of us, if you're employed and you're working with a manager, you'll go through what it is that your objectives are supposed to be, that you're supposed to be doing. What many people experience is that they've got more. Many people experience, this talk's happening at a time of a recession, so many people may have been redundant. Many people may well be listening to this and they've got more work to do because there's fewer employees. So that might well be part of it. So I think one of the things is, whether you're a manager or whether you're a member of staff, I think there's something very important for us to be honest and open about the fact that, yes, we are in a more challenging environment. The mere acknowledgement of that can be very, very useful. And I think that if you're a manager, don't be afraid to actually have that actual dialogue with your team. Look, we are in a challenging environment, and we found that we seem to have more things to do. Here are some of the things that we wanted to be prioritising. If you're a member of staff, find out what should we be prioritising. Have that dialogue. And there comes a point where you're going to need to make some serious prioritisation decisions. If you're struggling with your workload, tell your boss. If your team seem to be struggling with their workload, have that debate. Don't be afraid to actually have that communication around it. It's because sometimes that's that opportunity to really, again, zoom in and think, actually, what is really, really most important here? What is it that we can do? What are the key things that we might be focusing in? And that might even be the case even if you have the strategy and all those other documents, because, the map isn't necessarily the territory. So I think it's sometimes that really honest, being really open, being very, very mindful about that. That's one thing. Another thing is, and it's one of the things that I cover I zoom into quite a lot in the Evolved Heart book, which we're doing a free teleseminar of next week for those people who are interested. I go into this in quite a lot of detail in the book, is know what times of day you are at your best. I mean, this applies to everything. I used to, when I was employed, I used to work in media and PR. My mind was most fresh first thing in the morning, so I try and get in early. I try and get an earlier start and so on. To be honest with you, later on in the afternoon, I wasn't so much at my best. So what times of day are you at your best? What times of day should you be doing certain tasks? So maybe you might be able to you might still need to be there between a fixed time, but that way you might be able to rejig the kind of tasks that you need to do at the right time for you. So for example, in my own case, what I tend to do is that my mind is most fresh in the morning. So if I've got tasks that require a lot of conscious thought, and so on, I need to write or that kind of stuff, I'll do it first thing in the morning. I won't have my emails or anything on at that particular point. I will do those things kind of first. And then the other tasks, if I'm coaching people or other stuff, I can do that any time of the day. But I need to make sure I protect that particular time. So this really is going to require you knowing yourself, beginning to understand what do you do best, what different tasks do you do best at different times of the day. And that might mean you might need to rejig your routine around a bit. If you can at work, if there is flexible working, if you know that you're an afternoon person and you're not so good in the mornings, have that conversation with your boss. Again, when I'm coaching people, I often go into lots of these kind of details with people to begin to explore how it is that they can rejig their day. So don't just assume just because something's how it is now that it can't change. And this is where it goes hand in hand with having those conversations. That's another thing. There's some other things people can do also, Tom, really, which is that, again, if you have got quite a lot going on in the workplace, have a clear out tomorrow. Throw away those old files. Go through your emails, throw them out. Come up with some simple systems. Have you got things arranged very well? Have you got is your whole laptop covered with icons? That's not really going to be helping your mind. It's not going to be helping your organization either. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have the time. But sometimes you might need to take the time, which is in the long term a time investment. So one of the things that we see that happens here a lot of the time, people think, well, I'm too busy to do that. But actually, you're going to be ineffective if you don't. And I remember that, if I was honest, I used to work in media, a very busy job. I'd work absurd long hours, and I wouldn't take a lunch. And partly that was my fault, partly it was the environment's fault. But you're the captain of the ship. If you don't take a lunch break, then you might break. So you've got to have that conversation. You've got to make sure you take that time out. You yourself are going to have to find your own systems in order organizing your technology, organizing your files, clearing out that particular space. And it can often help you well to start and end the day with a clear desk space. That people often find that's really, really important. It really helps you to have a clearer mind, really. So take that time at the start and the end of the day to focus on that. Another thing that people can do is, before you get up, before you go into work in the morning, spend a little time before you even get up in the morning asking yourself again what's really, really important before you even get up, before you get caught up in that kind of stuff. What's really important? What do I really need to get done today? So that you're not overwhelmed when you get in the office, and you can remember and you can stick to your agenda of what's really important to you.
I like that. And it's also, one of the things that I've been getting into a lot recently is, is the whole Pareto principle, like the 80-20 principle, and how you can apply that to become much more efficient. I mean, and literally, and this goes back to what you talked about earlier about the lists and about knowing what's important and understanding yourself by clearing your mind. It's all linked, and I can see why you progressed, today's talk this way. But the thing about the 80-20 principle is you identify those tasks that are the most important in that they give you the biggest return, and you always do those first because they have the biggest impact, say, on your work, right? So and they tend to be just a small number of them that really make such a difference. And if you can identify what those are, you'll be so much more efficient than most other people.
It's so true. It's so true. I think that one of the things that I found in my own business was that is that what are the particular pieces of work that I'm doing that actually is going to bring in the work? Because sometimes we can get caught up in either things we enjoy doing, putting off things that we don't enjoy doing or whatever, and again, ignoring the things that are really key, or the things that are the most important, or the things that have the biggest payoff. And you're right, this 80-20 principle is usually that, there's 20% of the stuff that has the most rewards, or that's most important, that's going to bring in the actual work and so on. So again, study what does work and what doesn't work, and what does and what doesn't work for you. See if you're somebody who's really, really busy and you think, well, okay, on paper I can take a lunch break, but I think I've got too much work. Try it out. Take a lunch break for an hour. See if you're actually more effective that day, because I think that we can delude ourselves around this kind of stuff. I certainly did when I used to think that if I worked from 7 a.m. through to 7 p.m., I'm going to get more work done in that thing. And it can be a little bit like the hare and the tortoise. It can be a little bit of illusion. You can wear yourself out and so on. So you really do need to be canny. And what we're really talking about here is about managing your energy, and we're talking about focus here. We're talking about attention and so on. There's some other things that you can do as well, just not get involved in the gossip, not getting involved in all the kind of tittle-tattle. There's some other things you can do, turn things off, turn off the TV, turn off the computer, do some of these things. Be bold, be brave, see what works for you. If you're really serious about this, simplifying your life, then it might well be about simplifying your life. It might be about doing less. I spend many days when I don't watch the TV, or I don't watch the news or what have you. Sometimes we often feel as though I'm not going to be connected, I'm not going to know anything about the world if I'm not doing this.
And amazing, like nothing falls apart. When you do that, It's like exactly. the world doesn't break when you don't check email for 2 days, It's like
and this is a really important point between these things, because even when it comes to the news, for example, I make the point, the news is some news, it is not the news. You might find out far more about the world in your world by opening your front door than you might necessarily by reading a newspaper, depending which newspaper also that you read. So what you're really beginning to do is also you're broadening your consciousness, you're clearing out your mind, and you're becoming more aware of what really, really, really is important. So you're deciding which of all the different stimuli that we're surrounded by is really nourishing to you. What the people also that are nourishing to you. And this is why, again, I make this point that in the Become Who You Are, Coach Yourself video, there's a lot. The winners of the competition are going to be getting is that there's a lot of attention, and I know you've watched it too. There's a lot of attention there to take people through lots of these processes, and I reinforce some of these points because they all absolutely interlink, and it's all about knowing what works for you in order that you're able to simplify your life and be really effective. So if you've watched this, a lot of this is about going to be what it is that you actually apply from this. It's not just, it's what are you actually going to apply, and it's actually about doing less. It's actually about doing less a lot of the time, not necessarily about doing more.
No, that's a good point, because one of the things that I've just taken out from what you just said is about being brave in many ways. I mean, for example, I've worked in organizations like we all have, which almost it's like ego-driven about who can work the longest hours. Oh, I'm here 12 hours, 14 hours a day. And it's not really about the results you're getting. It's about just clocking that timesheet, and having this sort of kudos, which is not very healthy sort of work culture as well. So I mean, do people need to be brave to say, where I'm at now actually is not good for me, and I need to, I need maybe to think of something else.
I think what you're saying here is gold dust, and it's so important. I think we do need to be brave. I think we do need to be bold. You do need to know yourself. What is really working for me? Where is my health at? Because this is a serious, this topic that we picked today is a very, very serious topic. Your health, your life actually does depend on it. And I see so many people who've burned themselves out, and so you do need to sometimes be bold. You do need to say if you're really struggling, or if you need time out, or if you really need to take that break. And first of all, you need to be honest to yourself and think, you know what, I really do need that kind of time. And it's quite interesting, to one of the things that happens that I often say to people, how sometimes you can have that situation where you think something's really, really important, you're busy at work, and you've got this busy period of time on work or in your business, whatever it is, and then you're starting to notice that you're slightly ill, and you keep on going in, and you carry on regardless, and then it gets to a day where you're so ill that you can't go in. And you call up or whatever, or if you're your own boss, you allow yourself. And then there's that moment where you call in, you made the call, you say, look, I can't come in, I'm really so sorry, blah, 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 blah. You put the phone down, and then what's the first thing you do? You absolutely relax. And you realize that those things weren't life or death. Those things really weren't life or death. And so you really do need to develop a discerning point of what's really important. But you need to be clever, and you need to be canny too. These are often are challenging times. So you still need to demonstrate that you're doing a good job. I remember a while ago doing an interview on ITN News about this work-life balance thing. And I was saying it might be that you need to have that honest conversation with your boss where you're demonstrating, this is what I've done, here are the results that you're getting, because there's a link to this in communication. Here's what's really important. Here are the things that I've been doing. And what do you think about this? Here seem to be the challenges. Do you think we could do this, this, this? How can we best manage that time? You need to manage upwards and downwards. You do need to be very brave about this. And you might even find that you're in an environment that, as you're pointing to, doesn't work for you. Sometimes this might be that you're in an environment that doesn't work for you. You might be in a job that doesn't work for you. You might be in a relationship that doesn't work for you. I find this all the time as a coach. Or that you need to ramp certain relationships up or ramp other relationships down. All of these things can kind of emerge, but the more honest you are with yourself, and the more courageous you are to even ask yourself those questions, the more it is that you're going to find yourself in a place of peace with this kind of stuff.
That's pretty that's pretty powerful. And the thing that I think struck me from what you said there is about managing up and down. And if you want to have a truthful and honest conversation with your manager, or to say, you know what, I want to work around my life-work balance, and you need to show them, you got to give them something as well, because their instinct will be to say, well, we just have to go the way things have always gone. But if you can show them that, I work much more efficiently because of this, by applying what you've already mentioned, you give yourself so much more leverage to get good results for you. As you said, you got to be canny.
You've got to be really canny. If you know it's about this, and you start the conversation with that. You start the conversation with, I'm mindful that these are the things we're wanting to do, and here's what's going on, and blah, 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 blah. Can we explore what's going to be the most effective way to do that? You've got to still address the work, but you've got to be really clever, and you've got to be canny, or you're going to need to find your own ways to look after you. You're ultimately going to need to find your own ways to look after your own health and well-being. It's a little bit like, when sometimes if somebody goes into a gym and so on, and they'll check, have you got this, ultimately you're going to be responsible for your own health and well-being. You've got to know if you're lifting something that's a little bit too much of a weight for you. So you've got to really spot when you're beginning to struggle with that, and you've got to really find the time when you need help, when you need support, and so on. You've got to really spot the relationships that are serving you, the relationships that aren't serving you. You've got to spot if you're too covered with if you've got too much clutter, if you can deal with that yourself, if you need somebody else to come and help you clear the clutter, to clear the clutter. These are all things that you're the captain of the ship that you need to bring your attention to, and then begin to explore what it is that you need. And for me, Tom, as we round off, and if there are any more questions or whatever, for me, that's what again, Evolved Heart's about. There's all of these different resources, knowing that there are different people are at different places in their life, different spaces with their life. For some people, it's stuff to help them advance with their career. For other people, it's more about reclaiming their life balance. And that's why all these different kind of tools and the different prompters are there, in order that you can find what it is that resonates with your heart. But the question is, are you listening to your heart? If your heart's telling you, you know what, I'm in trouble here, and I think, I'm having, your heart might be literally, I had a client a while ago, their heart was literally telling them, that their heart was literally beginning to pack up because they weren't taking care of themselves. So you've really got to take care of yourself, and you've got to be honest with yourself and give yourself the support you need. Take the time out. So my summary is, ask yourself what's really important in life. Focus on it, write it down if need be. Make sure you put in time for you, for family, and all of that rest of it. Make sure you get the rest, eat well, sleep well, rest well, all the things you need to do, and surround yourself with supportive people, and get ready to have the conversations that you might need to have with people in order to support you in terms of the process of simplifying your life.
Excellent. And I think it's probably a good place to wrap up, but there's just one question that has been asked in slightly different ways. And I can imagine a lot of people perhaps listening to this, and they're saying to themselves, yeah, that's easy for you guys to say, you self-employed, but there are no jobs out there nowadays. The economy is really tough, and I think a lot of people might feel quite defensive about that. So, a common question really is that, if I don't put in the overtime and don't put in the hours, then I'm afraid I'm going to get sacked, or I'd lose my job. And I mean, how does that square then with that whole? In very, I guess it's another topic in itself, but what advice would you give to someone who asks that question?
I think that's such a good question that I think at some point it should be a topic in itself. Are you happy with where you're at? Are you ready to change, or are you needing to change? I think I'd love for us to do a whole talk on that particular kind of topic. But I think, again, you might need to be really tough with yourself. Am I serving the environment that I'm in? And is the environment that I'm in serving me? And I remember I've been there, and I've been made redundant a number of times. I've been unemployed a number of times in my life and my career. And so there might be many people here who are listening to this who are either in a situation whereby there's a lot going on and they feel as though they need to be there and that's the only job that they can have, in which case you've got to ask yourself, is that what I think to be true? Is that wholly true? Or is that partly true? Or is that my current perception? And you might need to get a few different perspectives on that. That's going to help you. But is this environment nourishing me? Am I nourishing the situation? And if the answer is that this environment's not nourishing me, or I'm not getting any nourishment from this, then ask yourself, what is that I'm wanting to do? Is it that strategically I'm going to need to make the decision I'm going to be here for a period of time, and I'm going to give myself 3 months to try and find something else? Because it might well be the case that you do need to put food in the table. But if you need to put food in the table, but you really are hating what it is that you're doing, then you need to try and allow just a tiny bit of a smidgen of time from somewhere in order to find whether you could be doing something else. I find that many people who, when they make those steps, be it that they're asking for help or they begin to explore what else they might be doing, they end up in something, and myself included, that is where it is that they're meant to be. Like every plant is going to be, needs a slightly different place in the garden. It might have a different, different circumstances will make it blossom, and so on. So you've really got to begin to understand what it is that works for you. And sometimes it might well be about a strategic decision that you recognize that you need to make. For this period of time, I'm doing this particular piece of work for this particular end result, and that in itself might well be good. It's a little bit like, when people they hand in their resignation. Okay, up until that point, they hated their job, they hand in their resignation, they've got a month to work, they're still doing the same work, they're still doing the same stuff, but what they do is that they emotionally uninvest. So it might be that what's happening in your life is that you've just got all your emotional investment. So sometimes I often say to people, when you're in that point of transition, bring back all your energy to you, still do what you're doing, but take out your emotional investment in that kind of thing. So still show up, still do a good job, be polite to people, but why are you overly fueling that kind of stuff? You need to really be giving a lot of that to you. And also another thing that I just want to touch on there, that perhaps we'll touch on another conversation, is that how are you, what's your energy like? If your energy with everybody is combative, you're going to find that your life is very, very complex and conflicting and very combative. And again, this is what Evolved Heart's about. If you're able to meet life with a lighter heart, it's why people talk about lightheartedness. You're doing exactly the same work. Two people are doing exactly the same work, exactly the same situation, or they're working to make ends meet for a period of time. One's cool with it because they're lighthearted and that they've got their perspective right of what's really important. Which is why I again did that deathbed meditation thing earlier on. What's really important. So I think that there is a lot of stuff here that might bubble up, and what this talk might do is it might spark many people on their own journey of self-discovery. Great.
Well, if this sort of talk can do that, then that's wonderful. But Rashid, I think there are quite a few issues and nuggets in there that I think people can run with. And as you said, it's all just to spark someone's thought process or encourage people to look a bit more. You pointed out earlier, there's a lot of free information on evolvedheart.com. We've put up a lot of your information, a lot of your videos. We keep adding to that. And literally people can go to the site, they can find meditations, they can find great articles, advice, tools, techniques, and what have you. And obviously you got the whole internet as well. So, people can search. And finally on the Facebook page, we're trying to build a community there and slowly start, getting people engaged and we can all support each other. It's not like any one person has the answers. I mean, we're all here supporting each other, learning from each other, and, on this great journey that we're all on. Eh? I mean, what do you say about that?
Absolutely. And on that note, Tom, if you've watched this video and you found it useful or whatever, somebody's struggling, or any of the articles, and there's an article, a thingy on, going for a job interview, pass it on, do share it. But the thing that I want to just also flag up from this particular talk is that if there's even one thing that you can do, because I know that everyone's got different lives and some people have got very complex lives or whatever, what's the one thing that you can do? Sometimes we again, at the end of these things, we're overwhelmed. We think, oh, Rashid said I've got to do this, I've got to da-da-da-da, or maybe I need to do this. No, what's maybe one thing, what is doable for you? What is achievable for you? You think, actually, what, for me, I could go to bed half an hour earlier. The last half hour before bed, I'm just watching this and emailing that and so on. Maybe I could go to bed half an hour and I'm going to feel better for that. Or maybe for me it is, I'm going to just try that thing about the 3 things in my to-do list. What is it that you could do? Or ask somebody to support you or to look after the kids for half an hour once a week that's going to give you a break. Whatever it is going to work for you. Apply all of these things, apply to the right dosage to you.
Excellent. Well, on that note, I think that's a great place to end it, and to thank everyone who's given up their valuable time to listen to this live. Hope you all found it useful. Rashid, thank you as well for sharing all your information, your knowledge.
Thanks, Tom. And just to say to everybody, of course, that this is going to be now archived. That you might spot the live chats page. I don't know if you want to tell people about that. That now all of these things are going to be there archived, that you can enjoy anytime.
I mean, technology, working. Knock on wood. This has been automatically recorded, and we will then have it stored on the live chat on the page. And we're going to be doing one of these every month, and people will be able to vote on a topic of their choice most months. Some months I think we might just decide, this is important. But every month you'll be able to vote. And again, each month we're going to archive that, and you'll be able to watch it at your leisure whenever you want.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I think we'll end the broadcast then. Rashid, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Cheers. See you, everyone.